Hello, and welcome to this episode of Security Square, our cybersecurity-focused series featuring analyst insights, expert guests, and the latest news and happenings across the security sector. I'm your host, Shelly Kramer, Principal Analyst here at Kramer&Co Research.
Hello, I'm Shelly Kramer, Principal Analyst from Kramer&Co, and I'm coming to you today from Philadelphia, where we are at AWS's annual Inforce event. Today, I am thrilled to be joined for a conversation about exploring GenAI capabilities within cloud security, which is part of the AWS Global Partner Security Initiative. I'm joined today by three amazing gentlemen. I've got PJ Hamlen, who's with AWS, part of the worldwide leader of the Global Partner Security Initiative. I've got Tony Harris, who's with Accenture Security, and I've got Prashant Kuchu, heretofore to be known as PK, who is a cloud security executive with Popular Bank. So welcome, gentlemen. I'm so glad to have you, and thank you for making time for this conversation. So I'm going to start with you, PJ. Talk with us a little bit about the AWS strategy within the partner group.
So I'll be more specific to our security practice and how I work with our global systems integrators. So the Global Partner Security Initiative was started actually 2 years ago this week. We announced it at Reinforce 2 years ago. And our approach has been to co-ideate, co-invest, and co-develop GenAI-enabled cybersecurity solutions with top global systems integrators, sure, of which Accenture, of course, is. So we have spent much of the last 18 months, I think, working together on a couple of offerings related to MXDR and compliance. We are also in the process of evolving our portfolio together. And what working with Accenture allows us to do is create scale and reach in the marketplace, right? They have a global presence. They are a well-oiled machine. They have some of the top advisors in cybersecurity in the world, and coupling that advisory capability and their enterprise transformation capabilities with their customers and AWS technologies, we're able to do something fairly unique for our collective clients.
It's a perfect partnership, absolutely. Tony, so talk with me a little bit, if you would, about how Accenture's experience in cloud security contributes to your customer Popular Bank's successful cloud adoption.
Sure. Yeah, I think there's really three keys to how we partner in market, and I think how we drive to customer success, right? I think one is for Accenture is just our breadth of capabilities from cybersecurity strategy through operations and everything in between. In our cyber protect practice where we have identity and cloud and AppSec, and then we have application and we have cyber resilience, and we've got a talk later today, actually, I think, on Cyber Next, which is we're talking about how Accenture secures from deep sea to deep space. All right, so we've got a whole breadth of capabilities coupled with the depth around industry, right? So Accenture has fully pivoted, probably 10 years ago to being very industry focused, industry centric, and that has pulled in our security practice as well. So we've got practitioners and leaders and architects and engineers aligned to banking, financial services, to life sciences, et cetera. So I think that is the second element. And then I think our ecosystem of partners, right? So we can bring to bear our partnership with AWS to the partners, to our clients, as well as many other pure security partners, like in identity, for example, with SailPoint and CyberArk, or in the SIM space with CrowdStrike. And so really those three things, I think, if we do it right with our clients, we're bringing those three things to bear to really drive towards the objectives that are on the table.
PK, really you're the reason that we're all here. And I don't say that in jest. What I mean is I think that we collectively have a mission to deliver the absolute best services that we can to our customers and to our partners. And so you're such an important part of this equation. And talk with us a little bit about how you think about cloud security and GenAI as a strategic imperative for your organization.
Yeah, no, absolutely, right? So as PJ started off or kicked off with how things are shifting towards in the security space, we have to shift the mindset. I think a lot of the organizations have to shift their mindset in terms of cloud security or GenAI. They're not initiatives anymore. Yeah. They have to be treated as dual pillars as part of your strategic framework, right? It has to be like an immune system. So that's what we would build. So we started leveraging it the same way at Poplar as well. And we started to build as two separate pillars for cloud security and our GenAI, where cloud security is our foundation and GenAI is our strategic accelerator. So that's how we look into it. And then we started building it in the same way. Cloud security is, I would say it's no more an initiative, right? As I said, it's more of we unlocking the transformative that comes up with the GenAI, and we wanted to make sure that we shift into that space as well.
Right. That makes perfect sense. So, PJ, I want to talk a little bit about next-gen cyber resiliency. And I know that you and the team at AWS have developed some really interesting disruptive security solutions. Talk with us a little bit about those and how you're scaling that.
Of course. So, importantly, with this initiative in particular, part of our mandate has been obviously to enable our solutions with GenAI. And we've been able to accomplish some really unique things with the help of Accenture, kind of taking some of the thought leadership. So from a detection and response perspective, we are able to enhance our ability to identify threats, manage events, and respond more quickly, taking the mean time to remediation down significantly through the guidance of generative AI and enabling individuals who may not have the same skills that they needed previously to take some guidance and do that remediation. So it really helps us deal with some of the skills challenges that we have in the cybersecurity industry.
Which is a huge issue,
right?
Yeah.
On the compliance side, again, we're able to be much more proactive. And we kind of look at it in two ways. From an industry perspective, certainly in financial services, PK probably has to deal with all sorts of regulatory issues, right? And so GenAI actually allows us to, very quickly identify drift relative to regulatory compliance and make specific recommendations to how to bring the organization back into compliance. On the technology side, one of the biggest issues with cloud security and one of the biggest challenges that organizations have are configuration, making sure that they have secure configurations. And our compliance offerings allow us to identify those misconfigurations, and we could auto-remediate them. We don't necessarily do that. We always tend to keep a human in the loop just for comfort. I imagine downstream that will go away, but we are able to, essentially issue infrastructure as code, for instance, to an engineer or an analyst to say, here are the steps you need to take to remediate and go fix this, right? And again, I think you asked about, how we scale that. I would go back to the reach that Accenture provides for us in the marketplace. Again, we can't scale it without them. And so for us, this is an extremely valuable partnership and allows us to create some unique value.
Awesome. Tony, do you want to touch on anything else? I know you already spoke to a little bit of the partnership between AWS and Accenture. Given PJ's point, do you want to elaborate on that at all?
I think there's a few additional things I would say about what I think makes our partnership great is, one, when we talk about a partnership, we're really talking about partnership from the technology services product level. So Accenture has people talking to the product leads at AWS about the security services that they're launching, that are coming up. So that feedback cycle we're able to provide is true partnering. And that is all based on what we're hearing from the clients, right? From the customers. So I think as with our reach and the number of customers we're doing AWS security work with, we can be a really good partner back to those product teams. But then full circle at the account level, where we bring the best of both AWS and Accenture to the clients is where we have a really tight partnership there. So, one of my key jobs globally is to make sure we're delivering on those commitments or working well together on both the product side asset developments. So what kind of accelerators can we build for our clients to help them get to that business value faster and reduce risk on the way? And then at the field level, just making sure that we're checking the boxes right around delivery and true partnership. So that's a huge thing to me. And PJ and I text almost daily about what's going on and where we want to make investments and where those strategic clients are that we just got to get right and we got to help them get there. So that to me is the goodness of the partnership.
Completely agree.
Yeah, absolutely. So PK, you're a cloud security executive at Popular Bank. What is your, this is kind of a big question, but what's your think big, kind of big idea, impossible challenge that you're kind of working towards trying to solve?
That's a good question that you asked. I think most of the companies are going through the same challenge as well, running the security space in the cloud. Cloud security, the big challenge I would think about is, or the big thing that I can think about is secure by acceleration. That's very key for the organizations because as PJ and Tony touched upon, we got to deploy AI agents. We have to remediate the vulnerabilities within less than 60 seconds. You have to have that visibility into the cloud environment. So these things will shift the game in security, right? The way we were thinking about cloud security will completely change. It's a rebirth in the cloud era, right? Cloud security is no more like a waltz, right? It has been shifted out, right? It's more of an innovation in terms of how the cloud securities look today in this era. So I think it's that's the big thing I want to do, and it's always a challenge with speed versus security. Speed, enabling the business the way the cloud is moving in. And then having that speed versus security is always a challenge for the organizations. You cannot maintain the cloud posture by enabling the businesses, enabling the AI and all the new features and functionalities that are coming up, and also managing the security attack surface. Right? So that's always a challenge for the organizations. I think most of the organizations are running through those challenges in terms of enabling the cloud and then also managing and maintaining the security. So that's a key challenge always.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I think that this is a time where you touched upon the fact that, things are changing rapidly but to me, what's exciting about being a part of what's happening to all of us today is that I happen to be wired for change, so I love change. And if you're not, good luck. But the reality of it is we're not just moving toward this point here and we're done. We are in a state where continual change and evolution and having to adapt and having to pivot and wiring your brain and the brain of your team, to embrace that, I think to me is one of the biggest challenges and something that also I think is tremendously exciting as well. So nerd thoughts. So PJ, talk with me a little bit, if you will, about different industries and what traction you're seeing with GenAI and cloud security across some different industries.
Sure. So obviously financial services is huge, and they tend to be on the cutting edge of adoption of cloud and AI technologies. Agentic is really going to create another paradigm shift for financial services. We are exploring leveraging agents to identify fraud and support individuals in the banks around anti-money laundering and know your customer, for instance. And it will empower these banks to do things that they hadn't been able to do before, right? And literally taking a human out of the loop for a significant amount of this activity, and the returns that we're starting to think about. We're already seeing the ability to solve some issues in a third of the time, right? And that will only accelerate. So financial services obviously is very big. We see a lot of potential in healthcare, and we've worked in healthcare and life sciences, with Accenture as well. We've got a couple of clients there. And believe it or not, manufacturing is actually starting to shift when you consider OT and IoT and infrastructure and the threats from nation states, for instance. There's a lot of potential there as well. So we made the shift a couple of years ago to an industry alignment, as Accenture had done a decade ago or more, and that's really important because our customers are looking for those industry-specific outcomes, and they expect us to understand their businesses.
Sure.
And again, Accenture can help us with that. When Tony mentioned, the visibility to clients and client feedback, it's incredibly valuable for us to have, and that allows us to, kind of invent what those industries are looking for and ensuring that we're creating business outcomes, for those business leaders.
Right. No, and I think the industry-specific outlook is part of what makes. I've had some conversations in the past with AWS and with Accenture and with other business leaders, and I think that industry focus brings so much. It brings a level of confidence to customers when we have deep expertise in financial services or whatever. It's sort of this trust layer that is hard to replace, right? So
working backwards from the business outcome that you're trying to achieve,
right,
kind of has moved the game from us just talking about technology.
Sure.
Because that's always been, I've never been the biggest propeller head nerd technology guy. I've always been like, yeah, we can do something, but should we, and why are we doing it? And so I think that industry lens is like, what are we solving for on the business end?
Yep.
Sure.
And then what's the technology we can stitch together to kind of get to that? So I think that pivot has been really big for us.
That makes perfect sense. So Tony, this is for you. So talk with me a little bit about how the collaboration between Popular Bank and AWS and Accenture is doing what I think you believe is setting a new standard for leveraging GenAI capabilities with cloud security.
Yeah, I think generally, we're trying to look at how, AWS is a unique platform. When I look at our other CSP, our cloud service providers that Accenture partners with, where there's, it's overused analogy, but this Lego box of things, right? And I think the advantage there is we can build specific, cost-effective solutions towards pointed outcomes using GenAI and eventually kind of getting into the agentic agent space. That are solving for what I just said, those specific business problems that we're trying to achieve. And so the flexibility that we have with the platform to customize and then integrate with other software providers where necessary, I think that allows us, it almost brings me back to and I'm going to age myself a little bit, but early Java development days, right? Where you could build a solution pointed for what you wanted it to be with the framework and these really great assets and accelerators and services that you could build on top of. And so I think working with our clients like Popular, to figure out what is the most important 3 things we're trying to achieve around cloud security. How can we use the native tools that AWS provides coupled with, some maybe partner integrations to really get there fast, secure, and remove that friction that historically sits there between the security team and the business. Right? The business wants to move fast, security tends to say, hey, not fast, right? So I think that just open dialogue, the flexibleness of the platform, some of the accelerators that we have, and just being able to really answer the mail quickly. And I think and you mentioned this a little bit, is this world we're living in cybersecurity, it's not a destination, right? It's this ever-changing, evolving. So we haven't even touched on all the capabilities around GenAI, and now we're talking about agentic workflow.
Right.
And next month we're going to talk about something else. So it's a different point, I think, that we've been before in technology, where we kind of historically go back 5 years, we knew where we were going.
Right.
I don't know that we know where we're going.
That 5-year plan is a thing of the past.
I actually laugh now when I hear people say, here's our 5-year roadmap.
Yeah. Okay, good. That'll
last
6 months, maybe. Yeah. All right. Well, PK, let's talk a little bit about business outcomes. So you've been partnering with Accenture and AWS. Talk with us, if you would, about some business outcomes that you've seen as a result of this.
Yeah, sure. And I think you alluded to this point as well, right? It's a mindset, the shift in the mindset in terms of how we operate on-prem versus cloud, right? It's key for the organizations. Most of the organizations do struggle from the talent, from the expertise and experience. That's where we bring in the value add with AWS and Accenture working together, right? The partnership with Accenture and AWS, they're ahead in the game for the organizations, especially the financial organizations. They usually take a conservative approach when it comes to cloud.
Sure.
So I think that helps us with the business outcomes that we wanted in terms of building our secure environment in the cloud, right? Shifting our mindset, right? Thinking about how we wanted to move into the cloud, how we can secure the cloud environment, cost optimization, which is one of the key ones, right? So that's very important for us. And then deploying securely because of the experience and the knowledge that brings onto the table from Accenture. And they're ahead in the game, as I said. I mean, as Tony was saying, today it's about generative AI. Tomorrow it's agentic AI. And next month we don't know what's going to come out, right?
Yeah.
And the Accenture team is already on top of it. So that's helping us out as clients where we don't have to focus on those things, where we're doing the BAU, the day-to-day operations and whatnot, where these the teams are working heavily invested in terms of the future. So I think those are the key outcomes I would think about, bringing in the partnership with AWS, Accenture, and working and also solving our needs, and especially around the business outcomes that we wanted for enabling the businesses and how securely we can enable the timelines, whatnot. So it's all helping us out. It's all falling together.
That makes sense. You know, the way that I always think about a relationship with a customer is that it's less of a vendor specific, you know, you're not my vendor, you're my partner. And what I am always looking for is I want somebody who wakes up in the middle of the night thinking about my company, or, you know, and I mean, I'm exaggerating, but really that's what you look for in a partner. Somebody that's thinking about problems that you don't even know you have yet, you know, and so I think that I think you're experiencing that to a certain degree.
And it's all one team strategy that we always build. So I think that's coming along well with the organization.
Absolutely.
So PJ, talk with me, if you would, about what you see that differentiates AWS and its partners while you're working together
To drive outcomes for customers. I think one of it is what I just said. I think your team literally, you know, wakes up thinking about
your customers and how to
wake them up.
or you wake them up.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, Tony mentioned the platform, or the AWS platform earlier. And, you know, I completely agree with him, right? We have something truly unique there. We are all in on partners, right? And so I think, you know, Matt Garman, the AWS CEO, had said at one point, we don't want to do any deals, you know, that doesn't have a partner attached to it in some way. And I think that's actually really unique, right? So we have some differentiated offerings. We have an extremely secure cloud, and we are able to leverage, as I mentioned earlier, the thought leadership and deep experience that these partners have. For us, that's a huge differentiator, right? I mean, we're working with some of the smartest people in the world in cybersecurity at Accenture, and that does something truly unique for our ability to create value for customers and to solve, you know, unique problems, those things that we've been talking about that are on the horizon. You know, post-quantum cryptography, for instance, is something that is really scaring us in the industry, right? And we're getting a lot of clients. Something like half of enterprises have begun to take action to harden themselves against, you know, the post-quantum tipping point or whatever, you know, whatever it is. But that will completely change the world from a cryptography perspective.
And it'll be here before we know it.
It will, yes. We probably should prepare for that. That's right. Yeah, it's you know, there's huge progress being made all the time, and so we do want to try and stay ahead of that. And you know, I think from a differentiation perspective, partners like Accenture certainly allows us to do that. We wouldn't have some of the customer insights around this without Tony and his team's input and guidance for us, and that's become really important for AWS.
So I've always thought that one of the beautiful things about a partner relationship and the partner ecosystem as a whole is that what happens
with your partners is that you bring the learnings, the knowledge, the expertise, the problems
the successes from other customers that you work with to each relationship. And so some of what that allows you to do is to avoid mistakes, to scale more quickly, all of that sort of thing. So what I'm asking you, Tony, is what lessons might you have learned from this particular project that might be able to be applied to other financial institutions?
Well, I think a couple of things. One is like this mindset of upskilling and shifting left the current resources that our clients have, right? So if we can use GenAI specifically, and we've built a lot of accelerators on top of Bedrock, and so AWS's partnership with Anthropic and what they're doing with Claude 4 and some of those things around deepening reasoning and research that those models can do, like that really allows us to have current engineers and cloud security folks on our clients to spend time on the proactive side and a lot less time on the reactive side, right? So as much of that as we can drive talent to the left, starts to help solve some of the shortage problems around the skills in the market. So that's one big thing. We anchor everything we're doing with GenAI and our assets and with our clients is with the mindset of upskilling kind of current. So it's not replacing people. And a lot of people are like, oh, with these solutions, we could take cost out. It's not really taking the cost out. It's moving, like I'm going to have the same cost likely, but I need to be doing different things, right? And I got to take my people and allow them to spend time on the higher value stuff. And so I saw some research that was done last week that I can't remember the site, so I won't quote the site, but last year, the average time for a breach, so someone spending time to breach a Fortune 100, 500 client was 44 days. And this year it's 5 hours.
I was holding my breath because I knew it was not going to be a good number.
Attackers are using the same technology, the same tooling, right, to do, harmful things. And so your cloud security team cannot be looking backwards at last week's data and correlating, trending, what happened, was that a malicious attack? You can't do that. You're going to be so they got to be on the forefront. So I think the lesson we're taking from the last year with multiple clients is the faster you get a platform in place to start tackling, not fully automating yet. We don't have a lot of clients that are like just remediate whatever you find, but getting pretty close to that. But as much of that as we can kind of take away from the team and open up, their time to spend on that proactive front. And because we're talking about like we're to the point of like real time, analysis of what's going on, right, across cloud security and the broader enterprise, right? So both of those views. So I think that's the takeaway is like the sooner any organization can stop doing stuff that can be automated with GenAI and really start shifting the focus, like the time's now to start doing that. Not going to have all the answers, like I said before, that technology is changing. But if you're 6 months from now, if you're still 80% of your time looking backwards on what's happening to your organization, it's too late.
Yeah, and the harsh reality is that threat actors are as excited about GenAI as we are, and they are highly motivated because of the financial rewards that are possible. So this is kind of a no-brainer. So PK, I'm going to leave it with you. My last question is, would you share thoughts on what AWS's role has been as part of this journey that you've been on?
No, absolutely. And then I'm going to add something with Accenture as well on top of it.
Absolutely.
Definitely cloud security is not a compliance anymore for the organizations, for especially financial industries. It's more of a customer trust, right? Cloud security is more like a bedrock of our digital trust is how I look at it, right? So I think there's a lot of significant improvements that we've done based on how we're working with AWS and how we work with Accenture and whatnot. I think as the gentleman has spoken around the generative AI and then agentic AI and whatnot. So the restored time that we've been used for 41 days, as Tony has mentioned, is significantly cutting down, right? So there's a lot of learning curve for us and also helping and supporting each other in terms of the partnership that we do, right? And then it's helping the financial industries, especially us, in terms of gaining that trust in the industry. That's the key for us as part of this. So I think we're pretty much well established in terms of the partnership with AWS and Accenture, so that's helping us out.
Yeah, Absolutely. Well, gentlemen, as we wrap this conversation, thank you so much for making time for me today. PJ Hamlen from AWS, Tony Harris from Accenture, PK from Popular Bank. You have been incredible, as I knew you would. Again, thanks again. And we'll be coming to you with more from Inforce in Philly here with AWS.
And that's a wrap for this episode of the Security Square. I'm your host, Shelly Kramer, Principal Analyst here at Kramer&Co. Thanks so much for joining us today. Hit that subscribe button if you've not yet done it, and we'll see you here next time.